Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever felt like human connection is just this mysterious, elusive magic? Think about a time you met someone and within literally 3 seconds, without even finishing a sentence, you just knew you were on the exact same wavelength. It feels like magic, right? A random spark, you just cross your fingers and hope happens. Well, what if it isn't? What if human connection is actually a highly precise biological algorithm that's just waiting to compile? Welcome to this explainer, where we are going to break down the actual structured biological mechanics of how our brains link up.
So think about our modern lifestyle for a second. We really have to ask, is digital text communication actually lagging your brain's biological hardware? We live in an ecosystem that's entirely built on instant messaging, rapid-fire comments, and emails. We spend hours just typing into glowing rectangles. But the research points to something pretty wild. It suggests that this flat, text-based communication is actually a massive metabolic drain on our high-performance brains. We think we're connecting instantly, but biologically, we might be forcing a cutting-edge supercomputer to run on a 1990s dial-up connection.
The sources actually call this exact drain the translation tax. When you try to squeeze your complex, high-dimensional human experiences, what the sources refer to as 4D spatial geometry, into flat, one-dimensional text, your brain literally has to work overtime. It's like forcing your mind to run a slow, super inefficient bubble sort algorithm. If you're into computer science, you know a bubble sort painstakingly evaluates just one tiny piece of information at a time, compares it to the next, over and over, instead of just grabbing the whole picture at once. And this intense metabolic drain, that's exactly what creates that weird modern glitch we all feel. Being constantly plugged in and typing, but somehow feeling totally exhausted and strangely lonely.
To really grasp this massive tax, we need to look at how fundamentally different these two processing engines are. On one hand, you have standard digital and AI processing. It's sequential, it's flat, and it relies on incredibly low bandwidth text. It processes one single word at a time in a straight line. But on the other side, we have what the text calls the brain's 3D VT engine. Our brains are built from the ground up for 4D, spatial, multi-threaded, action-oriented reality. So when we force our dynamic, beautifully complex biological engine to only interact with this unseeing, flat digital world, we are literally stripping away the spatial dimensions our hardware desperately needs to function. Honestly, it's like trying to run a high-end video game on a smart fridge.
The text actually gives us a fantastic visual analogy for how our biology is supposed to work. It says, they snap together with stopwatch precise, absolute geometric precision of p equals 0.000, clicking exactly like CS50 visual scratch blocks. If you've ever checked out David Milan's computer science course, you know exactly what those visual coding blocks look like. They perfectly interlock. Our biological intentions act exactly like that. Just think about the heavy, frustrating lag of trying to find the perfect words for a text message versus the absolute zero latency of physical body language. A quick nod, a shared glance, a shift in posture, these action symbols snap together flawlessly and instantly compile the code of human connection. So where exactly is the spatial code written in our heads? It all goes down in the ventral premotor cortex, or the PMV. This specific brain region encodes our goals but not as linguistic sentences. Instead, it uses discrete invariant action symbols. You can think of them as pure physical geometry that's prepped for zero-latency execution. Your brain is basically a high-speed spatial engine that is constantly mapping out physical intentions. It completely bypasses the slow, noisy, and honestly clumsy process of putting things into words, which allows us to interact with the world and with each other at lightning speed.
22.86 centimeters, or, exactly 9 inches if you're using imperial. So why does this highly specific number matter so much? Well, according to the data, this physical boundary is the ultimate biological hack. It's the totally natural distance a parent uses to hold a newborn baby, or the exact distance you pull a really good book in close to read. At exactly this distance, our visual system does something totally remarkable. It completely filters out external noise and directs our undivided attention. It sets the absolute perfect, distraction-free stage for a hardware-level connection.
And this isn't just theory. Clinical setups and rigorous measurements validate this exact distance. When we lock our visual focus in at this close range, we trigger physical, biological responses that literally drop the noise of the outside world. If you imagine clinical sensors tracking brain activity and eye movements, they actually show that directing our spatial focus right here actively suppresses peripheral distractions. It proves that deep focus and connection aren't just vague feelings. They rely heavily on directed visual energy to filter out the chaos of the room and zero in entirely on the subject. Now, stepping into this precise, intimate distance activates what the sources call our peripersonal radar. This is a built-in, highly sensitive spatial boundary immediately surrounding your body. When someone steps into this zone, your brain doesn't just passively notice them. It instantly spikes cortical excitability. Basically, it wakes your brain up, snaps it to attention, and puts it on high alert for connection. This rapid awakening fires up your mirror neurons right away, which lets you instantly read their emotional state and offer quick, wordless support. Your biological radar locks on, and a profound connection happens before a single syllable is even spoken.
So, how does this whole process actually compile? Well, it happens in 4 exact biophysical steps of spatial coordination. Let's walk through them real quick. Step 1. Your visual focus dramatically lowers your resting motor threshold. This just means your brain removes its natural barriers and gets highly receptive. Step 2. That physical proximity spikes cortical excitability in the motor cortex, charging your system with energy. Step 3. Those close-range sensory inputs trigger allostatic balancing, which totally calms and regulates the nervous system. And finally, Step 4. Neural coupling. The two brains link up. It's a precise 4-stage sequence triggered automatically just by aligning in physical space.
Section 2. Allostatic resonance and the chemistry of atmosphere.
When you're sitting at that highly optimized distance of 22.86 centimeters, your senses are just bombarded with crucial inputs. We're talking about the radiant warmth of someone's skin, their unique scent, and those incredibly subtle facial microexpressions that flash across their face in literal milliseconds. These are the close-range signals our sensory hardware has evolved over millennia to process efficiently. The really crucial takeaway here is that these vital biological inputs are exactly what gets completely stripped away, flattened, and lost in digital communication.
So why do those physical inputs matter so much to our well-being? Because they act as the master controllers of our brain's chemistry. There's this constant push and pull happening between glutamate, which drives excitement, stress, and alertness, and GABA, which induces rest, digestion, and calm. Think about that underlying jittery anxiety you get from endlessly scrolling a digital feed. That's often your system just starved of GABA. But when we get that rich physical sensory mix from someone right in front of us, it acts as a powerful EI balancer, perfectly balancing excitation and inhibition. It brings our nervous system to a state of absolute, profound biological safety and comfort.
And this is exactly why maintaining that spatial visual focus acts as such a powerful top-down regulator. Holding this visual lock directly lowers our brain's resting motor threshold. It actively primes our physical hardware, essentially turning the dial all the way up on our receptivity to another human being. By aiming all of our visual energy at one specific point, the brain actively turns down the chaotic noise of the room and amplifies the signal of the person right in front of us. It is the absolute biological prerequisite for meaningful eye contact.
Okay, so this brings us to the final incredible compile stage, orbitofrontal cortex, or OFC alignment. Your OFC is basically your brain's central valuation engine, constantly assessing the world around you. When you are perfectly aligned in physical space with someone, your OFC visualizes their action symbols instantly. It executes what the texts call a zero-latency biological handshake. Think about the incredibly frustrating delay on a bad Zoom call, or the agonizing wait for those 3 pulsing dots in a text thread. OFC alignment bypasses all of that nonsense. The two brains recognize each other's physical intentions immediately, with absolutely zero lag.
And the ultimate payoff for this biological handshake? Neural coupling. This is a profound state where two individual brains literally cease to react to the environment as separate, isolated entities. Their brainwaves actually sync up in real time. They merge into a single, linked biological system. If one person has a slow, calm breathing pattern, it directly regulates and soothes the cortical excitability of the other. You quite literally stop processing the stresses of the world completely alone and begin processing everything together as a unified, mathematically synchronized system. It is incredible.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. How can we actively redesign our digital lives to better match our brain's true 4D biological hardware? Every single day, we're trying to run a high-performance spatial supercomputer through the tiny, restrictive bottleneck of flat tech screens. Knowing the profound biological reality of that 22.86 centimeter radar, the absolute necessity of sensory allostatic resonance, and the magic of neural coupling, well, perhaps it's time we start prioritizing the physical, high-fidelity connections our biology actually demands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope it helps you see your own biological algorithm in a whole new, perfectly compiled light.